Yes, full. It's full. May I? Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this side event on the Special Tribunal for the Crime of Aggression, delivering justice and protecting human rights in the context of Russia's war against Ukraine. This will be a hybrid side event with almost exactly a balance of people intervening in person and online. My name is Nicolò Figattalamanca, and my role is to welcome you and to welcome the speakers and to moderate the discussion. The importance of this side event at this particular time, I think, cannot be overstated. The development of the conclusion of the agreement, which is now for ready for review and ratification by the Parliament, makes it extremely timely, and I'm extremely grateful for the sponsors, organizers, and co-sponsors for having convened us here today. Without too much delay, I will now give the floor to the permanent representative of Ukraine to the United Nations office in Geneva. Some of you might consider him new to the job, and maybe he does, but he's certainly not new to multilateral, having been the permanent representative to the UN offices also elsewhere, I think Vienna and Nairobi and now Geneva. So, Ambassador, thank you for convening us. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear friends, excellencies, colleagues. It is really a great honor for me to welcome you at this side event dedicated to establishment of a special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. First of all, let me sincerely thank our co-organizers, permanent missions of Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, as well as International Bar Association, its Human Rights Institute, and No Peace Without Justice for standing with us with this crucial initiative. I would also like to warmly acknowledge the support of many other permanent missions of Estonia, France, Denmark, Malta, Montenegro, Poland, Austria, Moldova, Finland, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Spain, Slovenia, Georgia, Slovakia, Czechia, Portugal, and permanent delegations of European Union and Council of Europe who joined us as a co-sponsor. So my apologies that I read it not in a good alphabetical order, but I try to do my best. Your solidarity and active engagement are really important, and we really need to defend international law, fundamental principles of the UN Charter, and commitment to accountability. More than 3 years into Russia's full-scale war of aggression, the international community continues to witness grave and systematic violations of international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Countless war crimes, crimes against humanity, acts of unlawful deportation of children, and other atrocities has been committed against the Ukrainian people. At the very close core of this aggression lies a crime that has yet to be properly addressed, the crime of aggression itself. So-called crime of crimes, sometimes people call it the mother of crimes, sometimes leadership crime, but it's really the cause of everything, which creates the conditions for the commission of other serious international crimes. And this is why the establishment of a special tribunal for the crime of aggression is not only a matter of justice for Ukraine, it is a matter of justice for the international community as a whole. It is about defending the international legal order from impunity for acts of aggression and reaffirming that no state, no leader is above the law, disregarding his or her position. On 25th June this year, a landmark step was taken in this regard when Ukraine and the Council of Europe signed the agreement on the establishment of the Special Tribunal. This agreement reflects a shared recognition that the existing international legal system needs a dedicated mechanism to address this specific crime. One cannot be prosecuted by the ICC, Court of Justice, International Criminal Court, excuse me. Today's event is an opportunity to discuss not only the legal and procedural aspects of this tribunal, but also its wider impact. How can it deliver justice for victims? How will it help protect human rights amidst Russia's ongoing aggression? And how can it serve as a precedent and deterrent against future acts of aggression elsewhere in the world, if any? I'm grateful to our distinguished speakers, leading legal experts, practitioners, and human rights defenders who will share their views on these issues. And as we move forward, the continued support of the international community will be crucial. I call upon all member states, all UN member states, international organizations, and civil society to remain actively engaged and to join this coalition for justice. Because only by holding aggressor accountable we can hope to restore peace, uphold international law, and protect fundamental human rights in Ukraine and beyond. Thank you once again to all for your presence and commitment. Welcome, and I hope that we will have a good discussion during this time.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's my pleasure to now introduce the first speaker of this session, Dr. Mark Ellis. Mark is the Executive Director of the International Bar Association. He's been at this game for a long time. He has advised the Independent International Commission on Kosovo. He has also been involved in the Iraqi High Tribunal, and his work in IBA leads the human rights segment of the most important, the foremost international organization of bar associations, who, among other things, developed an app called Witness to Atrocities, Eyewitness to Atrocities, which is currently being used in Ukraine, as I understand it. Mark, from the perspective of the legal profession, can you elaborate on the importance of the special tribunal within the international legal framework?
I will, and Nicolo, thank you very much for the introduction and the ambassador's words as well. It's a great opportunity and a great honor to be here with all of you on there. I'm not sure if Anton is online yet, but I wanted to just personally praise him for his remarkable work, I think, in bringing this special tribunal to fruition. And I also want to acknowledge the human rights, the UN Human Rights Council. I mean, this council is really the temple of human rights in international law, and it plays such a critical role in international accountability. So we know the council stood up firmly, courageously in the aftermath of Russian aggression against Ukraine, and that was a remarkable time. And so for me, those actions reaffirm the council's really strong commitment to the sovereignty and political independence, the territorial integrity, and really the unity of Ukraine. And I think that is so important. I think it's also quite poignant that we're talking about this issue today. This year marks, as we know, the 80th anniversary of the UN Charter, a charter that was conceived as a constitutional framework of the international community. At the time of its ratification, the charter really did reflect these aspirational goals of a world yearning for peace and security in the aftermath of World War II. And it really was that Article 2 for me that was so essential when the charter laid down this fundamental principle that said there is a prohibition on the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. And that's, as the ambassador alluded to, that really is the principle that undermines the crime of aggression. And it's really a sobering reminder that in the heart of Europe, we are witnessing one of the most egregious violations of international law in modern history. And it's not since Nuremberg where the international community has focused more directly on the crime of aggression. And even though the special tribunal is being created, as we all know, in a fragmented world order, this is a milestone. It's a milestone moment for Ukraine, for the international community, and civil society at large. And as Nicolo had mentioned, the International Bar Association, since the first days of the full-scale invasion, and as the largest associations of lawyers and bar association in the world, we have actively spoken out in support of Ukraine, providing technical legal assistance to Ukraine, and we've strongly advocated for this special tribunal. So we really do, as part of civil society, celebrate this agreement between the Council of Europe and Ukraine, and accompanied by this enlarged partial agreement. And that really is truly a momentous accord that we all need to acknowledge and to celebrate for today. You know, the tribunal's inclusion under this enlarged partial agreement that goes beyond Europe, I think really will bolster its credibility as a more international mechanism. I think the tribunal's creation acts as a response to this changing world that we're seeing, that shows that a substantial group of states is committed to upholding the rule of law, maintaining legal, kind of international legal order, and firmly, I think, reiterating this absolute prohibition on the acts of aggression. And from the legal, from kind of the legal perspective, we know that there are issues. There are issues that raises concerns within this special tribunal, I think particularly in relations to head of state immunity. And so because of that, I think the structure, the legal structure, the operational structure of the tribunal has gone, has undergone multiple revisions. We know that. We know that there are political disagreements that were among the participating states. That certainly was compounded by the Trump administration's complete withdrawal from the process, and that too is a complicated process. But we know, and certainly in this room, we know that political compromise is often necessary to achieve significant advances in international law. And the creation of the special tribunal is one of these achievements. The tribunal, in our position, from a perspective of lawyers, we believe this is absolutely a benchmark and will be a benchmark for international justice for years to come. And although different, the tribunal draws on Nuremberg's foundational principles, which holds that those responsible for the crime of aggression, as the ambassador alluded to, the supreme international crime, must be brought to justice. And as I said, from a legal perspective, there has been a compromise on head of state immunity. That was reached, which we know will delay the prosecution of the Troika. But although this proposed tribunals, the framework of the tribunal stops short of fully abolishing personal immunity under international law, it still advances the legal principle. And I think that's something we have to embrace. So for the members of the Troika, for those protected under personal immunity under international law, this tribunal will still be able to initiate investigations and indictments. And the tribunal will still be able to lay the groundwork for an eventual trial. And we think that that is absolutely critical. So the prosecutor will be able to prepare indictments and seek confirmations, arrest warrants, also against other individuals, other positions with authority who have actively participated in this act of aggression. So namely, senior political and military leaders. And I think we have to embrace that. That is an important step to ensuring that those individuals are brought to justice now or in the future. And listen, international justice plays the long game. And we know history has shown this time and time again that seemingly untouchable leaders eventually face justice. Milosevic, Karadzic, Taylor, Hussein, even Eichmann were eventually held accountable for the crimes like the ones committed against Ukraine. There are no statute of limitations for these types of crimes. And I think from a legal perspective, another central point is the fact that the special tribunal will be able to undertake trials in absentia. Again, not against the Troika while they're in office, but still against individuals who hold responsibility for these crimes. And we know that the trials in absentia can be oftentimes controversial, but the tribunal has set out standards that I think are consistent with international law and with the safeguards. And so I think we will witness these trials in absentia in a way that I think they will play a dynamic role in promoting international law. And I think a key element of providing a degree of satisfaction for victims who won't otherwise kind of see justice. So let me just conclude with these remarks, these final remarks. When we look at the special tribunal for the crime of aggression, yes, it is a product of compromise. It's not perfect, but it represents a vital mechanism for upholding the post-World War II international legal order that I mentioned at the start. We now, as states and civil society, we have to show the political will to implement it without delay. And the tribunal cannot be treated as a bargaining chip in negotiations to end hostilities. Justice takes time. It can be frustrating, but persistence is key. We have to continue to emphasize the importance of international justice. This ensures that such crimes that we're witnessing in Ukraine do not go unpunished. And although the tribunal is not a truth commission, it certainly will contribute to ascertaining the truth and hopefully have a critical deterrent effect. The failure to hold leaders accountable for the crime of aggression would alter the geopolitical landscape. It will embolden autocratic states and strengthen authoritarian ideologies worldwide. Russia and its allies are rapidly rewriting the norms of international law, rejecting the universality of principles and replacing them with a dangerous political relativism. I think in this new paradigm, the blatant violation of territorial sovereignty would be normalized and global legal order would be in jeopardy. This is not solely an issue of justice. It is an issue of security, and the stakes could not be higher. Thank you, Niccolò, for allowing me to say these words.
Thank you very much, Mark. You said final remarks, but we will get back to you in the question and answer session for more. And with that, it's my great pleasure to give the floor to Natalia Hendel. Natalia is a senior researcher at the Institute of Information, Security and Law of the National Academy of Legal Sciences of Ukraine. Natalia is a legal expert with an NGO Fundamental Research Support Fund and a member of the Ukrainian Association of International Law and a member of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, which reminds me, I shouldn't, but this is a plug-in for your report on the Krakova Dam breach and its impact. Thank you for the work you and your colleagues have done. Natalia, you have the floor. If you want to elaborate on how the crime of aggression specifically leads to human rights violations, and why, from a human rights perspective, in addition to the global legal order perspective that Mark mentioned, it's important that the victims of aggression have recourse.
Thank you for this opportunity to have the floor and to share the Ukrainian experience and understanding why this is important to establish the special tribunal for protection of human rights, for peace, for responsibility, for justice. And the act of aggression and the military and political leadership of the state that planned and carried out this act deliberately violated human rights because people have the right to peace. An act of aggression involves the issue of armed forces by a state against the sovereignty, territory, integrity, or political independence of another state, or in any manner that is incompatible with the United Nations Charter. We are now at this United Nations event, an organization created after the Second World War to promote the idea that every human being should be valued. After the Second World War, conventions, covenants, and declarations were developed and adopted to protect human rights, proving that mankind had learned from the past and was striving for respect and security for human rights. Human rights gained universal recognition. However, all these efforts to recognize and protect human rights can unfortunately be undone. One day, you and your family may be walking at 5 o'clock in the morning. By rocket or drones, as the Russian peace or another invader attacks your state, finding countless excuses for their aggression. Another war will begin, an information war, in which the victim state will try to prove who is evil in this situation. States didn't respond to act of aggression by Germany and Japan before 1939, and you know what happened next. Have states responded appropriately to Russian violations in Moldova, in Chechnya, in Georgia, and in Ukraine since 2014? The answer is clear: no. Have the rights of the victims of those violations been restored? No, because it's happened again and again. No state in the world can be 100% sure that it will not happen to them, that another state will not attempt to fulfill the so-called historical mission of a great empire. Ukraine has a very thorny history as a state. Ukrainians have suffered crimes and human rights violations first at the hands of the Russian Empire, then the Soviet Union, and now the Russian Federation. I believe many of the representatives in this room today have also traveled a difficult path to independence, democracy, the rule of law, and understanding what the importance of the protection of human rights. An act of aggression can destroy a normal, peaceful life and lead to ongoing human rights violation. Bombing deprives you of your right to life. Fire will destroy your right to healthy environment and your right to food. The destruction of dams will deprive your rights to clear drinking water. The bombing of hospitals and the targeting of ambulances by drones violated your right to medical care and right to health. The execution of the prisoners of war will take away your right to have a family. The bombing of temple violates your rights to freedom of conscience. The bombing of kindergarten, school, and university violates your right to education. The destruction of cultural values may destroy your identity. the threat of nuclear weapons calls into question the existence of future generations. Have you considered that kind of world your children and grandchildren will live in? The act of aggression that led to the occupation paves the way for further human rights violations. All that the UN has achieved in the field of human rights over such a long period of time will be systematically violated by the occupying state. State with historical memories of the horrors of occupation will understand what this means. Under occupation, you can never be sure of your safety and have no rights. Is this the world that was envisaged after the creation of the UN? Wasn't the UN created to prevent aggression and gross human rights violations? Don't we all share a desire for justice and awareness of the value of every human being? Aggression encroaches treacherously on the values that united us: justice, human rights, the rule of law are the foundation of the world order. In the 21st century, are we now going to betray the idea of unity in the struggle for human rights and our common human values? Ukraine is fighting not only for itself, but also for the values that united us against the aggression state, the Russian Federation, and those who supported the Special Tribunal of the crime of aggression against Ukraine. It's about justice, to ensure that not other state become a victim of aggression, and that this gateway to hell is not opened for your citizens. That's why it's very important that states and civil society support the establishment and work of the Special Tribunal for justice for victims, for justice for survivors, for justice for future, for justice for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for that testimony. I'm very pleased now to see that the man of the hour, if I can say, Dr. Anton Kurkiewicz, who has been leading in the process of the establishment of the Special Tribunal for the crime of aggression, has joined us. And before I give him the floor, I just have to acknowledge how important it is to have, on the one hand, the political will, on the other hand, the extraordinary expertise that was required in this case. And Dr. Kurkiewicz has certainly that expertise. He's now the Director General for International Law at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so I'll call you Ambassador. But you are also Professor, and you are to me Professor, first of all, of international law, public international law, and one of the leading minds in Europe on public international law and on accountability. Professor, then, Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to everybody from Kyiv. It's a great pleasure and honor to be present here today virtually, but still to be able to talk about really the historic event and historic effort, historic endeavor, which finally takes shape. And for us, for Ukrainians and for Ukrainian legal team of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, this is really a landmark effort which we were able to achieve together with our partners and friends. And many of them are here either in the room, like Natalia and Ambassador, or virtually as Mark, Dainius, Constanze. If I didn't see somebody, I'm sorry. But we really think that ensuring accountability for the crime of aggression against Ukraine is really vital for the whole international legal order. Because if such a crime of aggression, which gave birth to brutal, horrific crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, if this crime of aggression as a primary crime stays without effective and respective legal response, then the very question is whether, as Mark mentioned, whether international law still matters, whether UN Charter still matters, whether Article 2.4 with the principle of non-use of force or threat of force and the illegality of the aggression, whether they still matter. And I'm sure that this was a driving force for us and for our partners when we, for more than 2 years, worked within the core group to find the right answer on how to establish the special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. And we found the solution. The agreement with the Council of Europe, a leading, biggest, important European regional organization who has roots to work with Russia's accountability, because Russia was a member state, both in 2014 when the aggression started and in 2022 when the full-scale invasion started. So with this said, we found this solution, and we really are sure that the 3 documents which are the founding documents for the establishment of the special tribunal really give us the opportunity to establish effective, legitimate, credible tribunal which will be able to have broad international support. So as you all know, last week the agreement on the establishment of the special tribunal was signed between Ukraine and the Council of Europe. Ukraine now actively works on ratification of this agreement. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has immediately submitted the draft law on ratification of the agreement. And just now, in 20 minutes, the committee of our Ukrainian Parliament, Verkhovna Rada, the Committee on Foreign Policy, will have the meeting on the issue of ratification of this agreement. So we hope that this meeting will be a successful one, and our Parliament, Verkhovna Rada, will be able to ratify this agreement quite soon, hopefully within nearest weeks. With this said, we will do everything needed for the agreement to enter into force as soon as possible, and for the special tribunal to start its operations as soon as possible. But it is also important to mention here in this room that it is very important that the 3rd document in this package of founding documents of the special tribunal, with the first 2 of them, the bilateral agreement between Ukraine and the Council of Europe, and the second, the statute, which is a part of the agreement. The 3rd document is an enlarged partial agreement, which is needed in order to establish the managing committee of the special tribunal, which will be able to administer and finance the work of the special tribunal, where the states can participate as members or associate members by signing or ratifying the enlarged partial agreement. And with this tribunal can really get international global legitimacy, as any country in the world can enter into this enlarged partial agreement and can become a member of the management committee and can work together with us on financing, administering of the work of the special tribunal, on electing judges, prosecutor, deputy prosecutor. So it is really important that the work on the adoption of the enlarged partial agreement within the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and then signing and ratifying, as the case may be, by states of the enlarged partial agreement, is crucial for us all to be able to start the physically establish the tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. So our kind request to our friends and partners will be to move as fast as possible on the enlarged partial agreement in order for us to be able to finalize the job which we did and still do together. And of course, our words of gratitude goes to everybody and everyone who supported us and who support us on this way to justice, to accountability for the crime of aggression. To those of you who are present here on this important event, to governments of states, to Council of Europe, to European Union, to the Netherlands, to experts, academics, for all of those who within these more than 3 years advocated on each and every possible platform for the establishment of the special tribunal. We are sure that the tribunal, how it looks now with the agreement, with the statute, with the enlarged partial agreement, is our appropriate answer, legal answer to the aggression against Ukraine in the form of the ensuring individual criminal accountability for this crime of aggression. And we call all of you to support the tribunal in any possible manner for us all to be able to see the day when the tribunal will start its functioning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and congratulations also for this achievement so far. It's now my pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Danius Zalimas. Dr. Danius Zalimas is a member of the European Parliament. He's also a member of the Venice Commission, which is the Commission for Democracy through Law. And he comes to us having had already a distinguished career in the law, including as president of the Lithuanian Constitutional Court. So, Dr. Zalimas, you have the floor. Dr. Zalimas, we cannot quite hear you yet. You're muted, I believe. I think you're still muted, sir. Yeah. Could he be unmuted from here, perhaps through a no? No. You appear to be muted, sir. Maybe on your screen there is a button towards bottom left. Unmute potentially. There's a microphone button at the bottom of your screen.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, sir. I'm so glad to hear your voice. So let me start again, sir. And we've seen the, yep, just before now that you're here, maybe you want to tell us also how you see the establishment of the tribunal as part of a broader framework of international law, international justice. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, dear friends, indeed, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude for the invitation to participate here, and also my words of gratitude go to those who work hardly but successfully. Of course, nothing is perfect. This agreement is also not perfect, but still it implements the key aim to administer justice on such an important issue. And I would not like to be repetitive, but why I am also happy because this road to the establishment of the special tribunal, I think it can be also associated with Vilnius. I mean, 3 years ago in May, we had probably the first maybe second conference promoting the idea of establishment of a special tribunal. And partly addressing to what has been said by previous speakers, I would like to underline one more specific issue because I couldn't better maybe describe and what was rightly described the relationship between the aggression and other crimes, other international crimes, first of all, war crimes, which already have been described also by the Nuremberg Tribunal. But I see also the establishment of a special tribunal as one of the possibilities, and maybe it's even the best forum to address the real origins of all the crimes committed by the Russian Federation. Because what we see, of course, everything started with the aggression. As rightly mentioned by previous speakers, aggression by the war in Chechnya, aggression against Georgia, and then against Ukraine, but and also all the atrocities committed in Ukraine. War crimes or crimes against humanity, they have the common ground which can be addressed by the tribunal, similarly to the Nuremberg predecessor. I mean, the specific ideology, which sometimes is called Russian world ideology, but just at the beginning of this year, in January 23rd, the European Parliament even adopted the special resolution on condemnation of Russia's disinformation and historical falsification to justify its aggression against Ukraine, whereby the European Parliament condemned the ideology of fascism or Russian world as being incompatible with international law and European values, such as, of course, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And really, those origins of the aggression can be addressed during the trials in the tribunal. Just to recall, what does it mean, this ideology? First of all, it includes the denial of the right to exist for the white peoples like Ukrainians, because as we perfectly can recall, the initial cause why this aggression was launched, it was the aim to denazify the so-called denazification of Ukraine, which really means de-Ukrainization of Ukraine. Because Russia, and still in its recently published historical textbooks, it denies the very right of the Ukrainian people to form their own independent state and to exercise their right to self-determination, to organize their internal and external policies as they wish. So that is also important to address, and that can have even wider implications, because we know that this ideology of fascism also denies the right of independent existence of many other countries, including Palais. Actually, all the former Soviet-occupied or Soviet-dependent countries, according to this ideology, should remain within the exclusive sphere of influence and control. So that is really not contrary to international law. So, and also just that, of course, this ideology denies completely the contemporary understanding of human rights as such. So I think it is appropriate form also to address namely this ideology and probably to condemn and to declare it illegal from the standpoint of international law. So that is, I think, the important aspect that we also should bear in mind. The second issue I wanted to address, the jurisdiction of the tribunal is very well defined in my mind, and here I would like to to pay attention not only to the fact that probably not only leaders of the Russian Federation should be held responsible, but also of Belarus or illegitimate Lukashenko regime, because they also took part in the aggression, probably North Korea. But also within the Russian state, there is one specific feature which actually reflects also quite widespread trend by autocracies to employ judiciary, or the so-called judiciary, because in autocracies there is no real judiciary. First of all, in commission of international crimes. And here, I have to mention, and always I have to remind that 5 acts of annexation of 5 Ukrainian territories took place, committed by the Russian Federation, and in all those acts, the Russian Constitutional Court took the decisive role, because according to the Russian legislation, it is in the position to control the political act of the state, of course, regarding admission of new territories into the Russian Federation, which is, from the standpoint of international law, is an act of annexation. So it is very important that really no one who bears the greatest responsibility should be left aside. The jurisdiction of the tribunal should comprise all the persons bearing the greatest responsibility. And of course, I believe the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, who is actually initiator, according to the statute, of all proceedings within the tribunal, will be capable to address this issue as well. And coming to your question, actually, yes, it was from the very beginning the sense of tension between those who promoted the idea of the special tribunal with also those who, first of all, were in favor of International Criminal Court engaging its jurisdiction with respect to the crimes committed against Ukraine. But here, I think we see the solution in the statute, which sounds very well based. What I mean, first of all,
thank you.
Sorry. Okay, we all are aware that the ICC doesn't have the jurisdiction in respect of aggression against Ukraine because there are specific requirements. First of all, of course, when Ukraine made the declaration on which the ICC jurisdiction is based, then come amendments force at all. But anyway, the Rome Statute contains the requirement that both states should be parties to the statute in order to enable the jurisdiction of the ICC. So this is not the case. So it is quite clear that it's at least theoretically the division can take place between the crime of aggression and other crimes, other international crimes. War crimes and crimes against humanity, and in this case there is no conflict between jurisdiction of two international bodies. And there is also solution provided in the ICC in case when both international tribunals exercise jurisdiction in respect of the same persons, then the precedence is given to the ICC. That is reasonable, of course, because unfortunately the special tribunal is not established by the whole world community.
Thank you.
But on the other hand, it allows and opens the way for constructive cooperation between both
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And also it solves the issue, then the real collision can take place. So if I may, I would like to finish with this item, just adding, of course, the special tribunal.
Thank you very much, sir.
And the most important that justice can take, of course, time, but it comes inevitably. And that is the idea that the tribunal is symbolizing.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that. We are running a little out of time, but I did want to have an opportunity for interventions from the floor. I understand that the permanent representative of Malta might be in the room, Ambassador De Battista. Malta is the current rotating chair of the Council of Europe, and so the counterpart in the bilateral agreement.
Thank you, Chair. I will keep it very short in the interest of time. Of course, we are very proud that during the Malta's presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, Malta presided on the signing of the agreement between Ukraine and the Council of Europe. And as our Deputy Prime Minister, Ian Borch, said, that finally now the tribunal will confront one of the gravest violations of international law, which is the crime of aggression, and will do so by ensuring that those who wield power are not shielded by it. They will be held to account, not through retaliation, but through law. We are looking ahead as the Maltese presidency now to focus on the operationalization of the tribunal and support for Ukraine through coordinated multilateral initiatives, including ongoing negotiations on the establishment of a fully fledged claims commission and the establishment of a compensation fund. As you know, Malta stands in full support with the people of Ukraine against the Russian aggression. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have the permanent representative of Liechtenstein, Ambassador Bucher.
Yes, thank you, Nicola, for giving me the floor. And we're also pleased to co-organize today's event and thank our Ukrainian friends for providing this opportunity, which is very important from we see it that this can also be discussed in the context of the United Nations, where this discussion originated, even though if the court has now been created with the Council of Europe. As accountability is fundamental to ensure just and lasting peace in Ukraine, we were early on to call for the creation of a special tribunal because the International Criminal Court, unfortunately, doesn't have justice. So we hope that this issue can be addressed next week when there's a special session in New York on this topic. But it's also important, as we have heard, to not only advance public international law, but also as an important step for international law, since this is the first time such a judicial mechanism could be created to deal exclusively with the crime of aggression. And this is important for Ukraine, not only to fill this international gap in international justice, but we're also very happy that it's based on international recognized definition of the crime of aggression, as we could find in the Rome Statute as amended, as this will provide a very legal solid basis for the tribunal and will increase acceptance of its jurisdiction. No surprise, we know the political realities. Of course, we would have liked to see an international tribunal to overcome the immunities. Propriemotor powers for the prosecutors would have been good, and lack of absentia trials. Having said that, this is really a good basis now for Ukraine and its people, and we continue to be steadfast in our support, and we stand firmly behind the establishment of the tribunal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I would have been very pleased to give the floor to the legal advisor of the Council of Europe, but we now only have literally 30 seconds. And I would very much like to hear the conclusions from the Dutch ambassador, Mr. Paul Beckers, permanent representative of the Netherlands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it's a very ungrateful task to have to conclude because most people are eager to leave. And secondly, what can I add to 4 doctors speaking? I mean, Ambassador Timbaliuk and I, we're just ambassadors. We listen to 4 doctors. There's not that much to add. But let me say a big thank you to Ukraine, to Yevgeny for hosting us, for organizing this, and also allow me to thank all fellow co-sponsors. 2 of them spoke, but as many others, as you mentioned. Let me just say something that I think is dear to all of us, because you listed the whole list of countries, Yevgeny, and like so many people in the world, the people of the Netherlands have been standing very close, side by side, by the people of Ukraine. And there was a famous author called Shannon Adler who said, one of the most important things you can do on this earth is to let people know they're not alone. And that's what we in the Netherlands have been trying to do with many others. And we have deep respect for the people of Ukraine. And also, of course, a special thank you to Dr. Kulinevich for his efforts to hold Russia accountable for its many and huge crimes, especially the crime of aggression. And I'm happy to note, indeed, that we are moving much closer to what is so urgently needed, the establishment of a dedicated tribunal for the crime of aggression. And as I understand from the ambassador, Kulinevich, as we speak, the ratification is being discussed in Ukraine right now. That's very special. And as the Netherlands, we reiterate our willingness to host such a tribunal in The Hague, the city of peace and justice, as you know. But we need sustained political commitment and financial support to make this a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, if we fail to act on a crime of aggression, we do not only risk injustice, we risk setting a dangerous precedent that powerful states can withdraw borders through brute force without a consequence. We risk that aggression pays. We risk that the UN Charter is negotiable. And we risk that other autocratic regimes may follow suit. And we should prevent that. As Edmund Burke wrote, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good people do nothing. This tribunal is not just about Ukraine. It's about upholding international law and safeguarding global stability. And that's why we are here, because we believe there can be no impunity for international crimes. Thank you very much for attending this event.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you very much.